Alrighty, greetings and salutations, everyone. My name is Andrew Kirchhoff, and welcome to our Saturday kind of morning or afternoon, depending on where you are, live stream for Week 9 of the 2024 fantasy football season. So this is how this live stream is going to go. Unlike normal Saturday live streams, of course, this is not taking place starting at 1 p.m. PST to 3 p.m. But unfortunately, this is only going to be a quick 1 hour live stream. I will be back tomorrow, like it says in the overall pinned comment in the live chat in regards to I will be back tomorrow morning starting at 7 a.m. to 10 a.m. as per usual. Just this Saturday specifically is going to be a little bit different. Either way, we're still answering questions for the next hour. If you guys have any questions, whether you send that in via the live chat and or the super chat, make sure you include your scoring format, half PPR, full PPR, standard. The more potential context you provide, the easier it will be on my end to be able to answer those questions. Now, over the course of the last 24 hours, just like we talked about last night, there's been a lot of changes. Now, there's also even more information that after I got off the live stream yesterday and I was conducting kind of more research regarding the rankings, a lot of conversation regarding weather was starting to be thrown into the direction. Now, as to how much weather we see this upcoming weekend is going to have to wait and see. Obviously, we are now in November, so weather is going to really play a big factor. The only game in which I actually see it playing a major factor will probably be that Green Bay Packers versus Detroit Lions game in Green Bay. That is the only game that I could see it playing a huge factor within. Outside of that, everything else seems to be like, yes, there are chance of rain in Cleveland, in Buffalo, in Seattle, but it's not going to be as impactful or expected to be as impactful. But we'll keep an eye on that as the week goes on, and we'll see what kind of rain we're talking about. If it's just a light drizzle, then we're not going to worry about it. The passing game can still exist, but someone like Jared Goff outdoors in the rain, typically not the greatest overall play within a given week. So we'll go ahead and we'll keep that in mind as I progress throughout today's live stream, and then by tomorrow morning when I have my top 16 rankings at quarterback, tight end, etc., all those positions on screen, it'll obviously take that into account. All right, OJ Running begins the day with the first question. Says million days in a row. Yeah, that's right. Says in a full PPR, drop Jennings for Tillman rest of season, play McConkey or Pitts in the flex, playing Njoku at tight end. Okay, so as of all of the options you have available, am I willing to drop Jennings for Tillman? I mean, look, the way that I see it, Jennings, I know what I'm going to potentially get within that offense as, him being a primary receiving option. The issue is if he's just filling into the Ayuk role, and what we've seen out of Ayuk's overall opportunity share is not very much. If he gets 6 targets in a singular game, we are lucky. The opportunity share in that overall circumstance, I don't love, to the point to where I'm like willing to make that swap and go pick up Tillman just to see if in fact, in case in a full PPR, he could be more serviceable in the long term. So yes, I'd be willing to make that swap. Now, in regards to who you're playing within your flex, I'd lean in the direction of playing Kyle Pitts this week. Thank you, OJ. Appreciate it. Nom sends in a question. Says, hey, Andrew, happy birthday. Thank you very much. Trade Mixon for Devontae Smith and Rachaad White. Mixon for... Okay, so hold up. Mixon for Devontae Smith and Rachaad White. That trade in itself, I don't love. I like the Mixon side more as of right now. Next question, Mixon for Connor and DK. Mixon for Pickens and Pacheco. Mixon for Kenneth Walker and Olave. Yeah, the last trade is the best trade. If you could trade Mixon for Kenneth Walker and Olave, or even trade Mixon for Connor and DK, those are the two best, I would assume, as of right now. But considering DK's knee injury, not going to return until week probably 11, if not 12, Kenneth Walker Olave is the haul that I would like in return. If you get to call your shot in this circumstance, then yes, give me the Kenneth Walker Olave combination. Nom, thank you. Pro22 sends in a question, says Waddle or Worthy over Bucky or Rachaad White in a half PPR. Am I playing either of those two receivers over those running backs? So I don't expect much out of Bucky Irving and Rachaad White on the ground. Through the air, if they're going to continue to get themselves a healthy target share within the offense, then they'll continue to be relevant. Now, again, if Rachaad White, Bucky Irving are to both finish with 5 receptions on the given week for, I don't know, let's say, for example, a total of 50-plus yards rushing and receiving, they're going to be very much so contingent on scoring a touchdown, because I still believe that guys like Waddle and Worthy are very capable of accumulating that kind of workload in terms of the targets and receptions and total yardage count. So if I'm just looking at across the base who has the highest potential for touchdown upside, I'd probably say Rachaad White is probably the best, and then it would go Worthy second, Bucky third, Waddle fourth. That's the order in which I'd go about it as of right now. Thank you. Alex Songgrass sends in a question. Says, standard start 2 between Brian Robinson, James Cook, and Josh Jacobs. As it currently stands, I'd probably go with Cook and Jacobs. Those would be the two that I would roll out this week. Brian Robinson should have himself a great game as well. To be honest, it's just a matter of, in terms of the overall touchdown opportunity share that Brian Robinson will have with Jaden Daniels kind of threatening to steal a couple touchdowns in comparison to Cook and Jacobs. Obviously, he is in a bigger threat column as of thus far this season. Thank you. All right, Jem, I'm him, sends in a question. Jem, where is your question? Let's see here. It wasn't attached originally to the Super, so let's see if I can find it in the live chat. Jem, there's nothing in the live chat from you. If you could do me a favor and just type it in the live chat, I'd be greatly appreciated. Thank you. All right, moving on. We had a question from Soultronics, who says, in a full PPR flex, pick one, Chuba Hubbard, Marvin Harrison Jr., or Josh Downs. In a full PPR flex, I'm going to play Josh Downs there. That's who I'd prefer to play. It'd go Josh Downs 1, Chuba Hubbard 2, and Marvin Harrison 3 in that order. Thank you. C. Joe 2 sends in a question, says, I have Andrews and Ingram. I know you have Ingram ranked higher, correct? But should I start Andrews given the matchup and his hot streak? No, I mean, I don't feel beholden to having to play him in this circumstance. When I look at the matchup for the Eagles, against the Eagles, for the Jaguars, the Eagles last week just gave up, like 7 catches for 80 yards to Mike Gesicki. Evan Ingram, again, like he has shown in his career with the Jacksonville Jaguars, in the absence of Christian Kirk, he is a dominant force. Even last week, even though all of the overall workload didn't go in the direction of Evan Ingram, in the absence of Kirk in the second half of that game, Brenton Strange, the second tight end, was also getting himself in the mix. We saw like 100 yards and almost 10 receptions worth of workload for the tight end position for the Jacksonville Jaguars. A vast majority of that will probably go in the direction of Ingram going forward, which again makes him just a safer play across the board. Like, I'd rather have a player who's capable of getting 10 points without a touchdown rather than one that needs a touchdown to get to that overall baseline. Thank you. Pablo sends in a question, says, in a full PPR, Downs or DJ Moore in the flex? I'd much rather play Downs this week. Thank you. Moving on to a question from Andrew, who says, hey Drew, good morning. Good morning to you as well. Out of 3, pick one. Very well. Reed, Downs, Tillman. Who would you start? Yeah, I'd rather start Downs. Again, across the board, guys, Downs is someone that I'm starting almost everywhere. It just seems like way too easy of a start. With Joe Flacco there against the Minnesota Vikings matchup, it's just an auto start in my mind. Thank you for the question. James sends in a question, says, Jordan Love versus Detroit or Geno Smith versus the Rams? We'll have to wait and see. I think I'll probably still have Jordan Love slightly ahead of Geno Smith. The issue with Geno Smith, with no DK Metcalf and no Noah Fant, the offensive line a little bit of in a shambles situation against the Rams defense that again has played well against Geno in the past. I don't really love Geno Smith this week at all. So I'd probably lean still in the direction of Jordan Love in that circumstance. Death to Ming sends in a question, says, happy birthday, Matt. Thank you very much. Who do I play in the flex this week? Chestnut, okay. If Pollard is out, okay, very well. ETN if healthy, Addison or Wando Robinson. Yeah, so if in fact Pollard is out, you would play his backup Julius. That would be the way you go about it. Now, as for the next alternative option, in case Pollard is active, then at that point you would be playing ETN if healthy under the assumption. Now, if ETN is not healthy and Pollard is playing, then at that point you pivot to playing Addison. So you got like a 3-way pivoting cycle. Jorge sends in a question, says, Love/Kyler. Pollard. Okay, so first question for you, Jorge. I'm going to play Kyler over Love. Next question, Pollard or Jacobs? If in fact Pollard is active, I would play him over Jacobs. Next question after that, Tracy or Marv? Happy belated. Thank you very much. Tracy or Marv is going to be very much so dependent on scoring format. If you're going to play in a full PPR, I'd be willing to go with Marv. If you're playing in a half PPR standard, I'd be very comfortable rolling Tracy in those circumstances. Thank you. All right, let's see here. I was looking for Jem. Is Jem end up typing anything? All right, Jem says PPR currently. Okay. Starting Moore and Terry McLaurin. I need one wide receiver and one flex between Shakir, JSN, Pittman, Dobbs, Chase Brown, and Brian Robinson. Cool. So in this PPR circumstance, Jem, I'm going to lean in the direction of playing Chase Brown and Michael Pittman Jr. Those would be the two that I prefer to play this week in a full PPR scoring format. Thank you very much, Jem. I appreciate it. All right, so we move on to a question that comes in from Zolbu, who says, pick one in a full PPR. Zach Moss, who's already out this week, not playing. Devin Singletary, not playing this week either. Or Tyler Algier. Tyler Algier would be my suggestion. Again, the other two running backs are not going to play. Zach Moss is already doubtful designation. He's not going to play. He's not going to be active. Devin Singletary doesn't get any touches, while Tyrone Tracy is out of the concussion protocol, which now, as of yesterday, confirmed is. Tracy will be the full-time guy there. So Tyler Algier is your start this week. Thank you. Terry R. sends in a question. Says, in a full PPR, Mooney versus Dallas, backups or JSN versus the Rams. As of right now, yeah, look, the Rams defense, the Dallas defense is slowly but surely, as the week has progressed, kind of falling apart. A lot of names that, again, typically are out, continued to trend in that direction. Then, even though Deron Bland was expected to return, he is not going to be active in this game, which obviously is a big deal. There's a possibility that we may not see Trayvon Diggs play this week because, again, he did not practice at all with a calf injury. From what I heard yesterday, he's dealing with some sort of tear in his calf. Didn't participate in any sort of practice. So if their top tier cornerbacks are gone, their top tier pass rush is gone with Micah Parsons and Demarcus Lawrence. If everything is gone for this defense, I would anticipate that yeah, I would assume that Mooney's probably the play in that circumstance. That's the direction I'd probably go in if it was me. Thank you. Austin sends in a question. Thank you, Austin. Says, thoughts on Kevontae Turpin? He's on the waivers, so I got him because Diggs is out. Yeah, Kevontae Turpin is not a startable option. Unless you get points for return yardage, he is not actually worth anything. Because if you just look at the overall opportunity shares that Turpin gets, again, you got to remember, within the offense, he's not a top 4 receiving option. Or in terms of target opportunity. When I look at his overall workload as of late, he's not really doing much because he's void of touchdowns. Now, if he's able to get himself consistent overall workload, I'd say absolutely. He might be of value, but as of the current construction of the Dallas Cowboys offense, I don't think he's worth a pickup as of right now. Unless you're playing in a 16-team league where you're super desperate. Chris Moraga sends in a question. Says in a half PPR flex, pick one between Deontay Johnson, Laporta, and Allen. Okay, so when you say Allen, I'm going to assume you mean Keenan Allen. If that is in fact the case, I'm going to lean in the direction of playing Laporta, Allen, Deontay Johnson in that exact order. Thank you. Jason Hosier sends in a question. Says, happy birthday, my guy. Thank you. Half PPR. Who should I play between Chase Brown, Kareem Hunt, or Tank Bigsby? As of those three, I currently have it in the order of Chase Brown number 1, Kareem Hunt number 2, Tank Bigsby number 3. Those are the 3 that I would play in a half PPR in that exact order. Thank you. LLL619 says, in a standard PPR, I have both Puka Nacua and Cooper Kupp. Which should I start in my flex? Also, who do I pick? What the heck does that say? Also, how do you think Puka will perform with his injury? I don't know why my brain started shutting down there for that one sentence, but I got it done. LLL. So, I don't know what exactly the severity or the degree of that injury that he sustained at practice is truly going to kind of implicate his performance. If I knew for a fact that it was one injury or the other, I'd be able to give you a little bit of a better, or I'd at least have a better understanding as to how to rank him. But considering there's really no information, Sean McVay is a steel trap when it comes to overall injury news. He will not share that. Of course, last week we didn't expect Puka to play. All of a sudden he's in the lineup. So as of right now, if Puka is active, he's going to be in my lineup. I mean, they proved it to us last week. It doesn't matter how limited he is just the better option in comparison to Kupp. So as long as he's active, he's in my lineup. If he is not active, then obviously the decision is made for you and you play Kupp in that circumstance. But how do I think Puka is going to play? I mean, again, even though last week he played 50% of the snaps, he still had over 100 receiving yards. So whenever he was on the field last week, in the routes that he ran, he was targeted on 40% of those routes. That is a egregiously high number. So again, as long as he's active, he's in my lineup. Thank you. Let's see here. We had a question that came in from OGJC7, who says in a half PPR 12-team league, we have to trade we have AJ Brown and Dowdle for CeeDee Lamb and Warren. I'd rather have the AJ Brown Dowdle side because I don't believe that Warren is of much value long term. Thank you. Jonathan Cushman says in a 12-team full PPR 4-4 record with Jalen Hurts, Tracy, Javonte, Chase, McConkey, McBride, Etienne, Coleman, Braylon Allen, Ray Davis, and Mason. Any suggestions? Yeah, you need to revamp this entire team. When I look at it as a whole, your bench, Braylon Allen, Ray Davis, Jordan Mason, none of those players have any sort of impacting value outside of an injury. So you're just pretty much you have zero depth. When bye weeks hit, you are going to be in a lot of trouble. And looking at your team as of right now, everyone except for Jalen Hurts is going to have to face a bye week upcoming here. So hopefully you have the ability to kind of make some swaps on your waiver wire in order to give you more depth. If that is not the case, with a 4-4 record, again, you're going to have to probably get yourself into a position where you're winning more than half of the games that are remaining. What are there, 6 games remaining until the fantasy playoffs begin? Let's see, week 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. Yeah, 6 games. You're going to at least have to win three to four of them, 4 out of the last 6. So once you start hitting bye weeks, my suggestion, Jonathan, is that you are trading players away if you cannot confirm victories just off of projection alone. So like if I'm going to go into a week in which I'm not going to have Jamar Chase or, Trey McBride, for example, I mean, you don't have any backup tight ends. You don't have any backup receivers. So you're going to probably have to make some moves there in order to kind of keep your season alive going forward. So again, every week to ensure victories is probably going to have to revolve around making a trade or hitting the waiver wire pretty hard. All right, let's see here. Agro sends in a question, 1234, says Dobbins versus Tyrone Tracy and Kmet versus Henry. As of those two, I'd prefer to play Tyrone Tracy this week, especially in a full PPR. And then the next question, Kmet versus Henry. I do have Kmet ahead of Henry. I've changed up my rankings a bit. And yes, I do have Kmet ahead of Henry going into the matchup this weekend against the Arizona Cardinals. Thank you. Adam Mori sends in a question, says Waddle or Gesicki in the flex? Kyler over Herbert. Yeah, I would play Kyler over Justin Herbert. And yes, I would play Gesicki over Waddle. I appreciate it. Thank you. Moving on to Sean S., who says, love the channel. What do you think about this slip? Receiving yards for Lamb over 85.5, Mooney over 53.5, London over 59.5, Dowdle over 15.5, Bijan anytime touchdown. I think that's pretty solid. Look, the automatics that should occur, right, in this circumstance, just off of the streak of success. Like Lamb should be great in that circumstance. What did he have, like 17 targets last week? I'd assume that he'll continue to have himself a high overall target share, reception share, and the yardage will certainly be implicated. So Lamb should be good to go. London should also be good to go. That is a low number. And outside of last week in week 1, he has accomplished that every single game this season. So then it's just a matter of, is Mooney going to get the ample targets, which he should, because again, that secondary is beat up with a lot of players missing, and that defense as a whole. Bijan has been on a 3-game touchdown streak, so 4th game wouldn't be out of the realm of possibility. The only question is Dowdle capable of 15.5 receiving yards? That is it. That is the only question, because if he doesn't get himself enough overall opportunity, if he doesn't get like 4 or 5 targets out of the backfield, he will not be able to accomplish that number. Because a lot of the times, his overall workload, he's either running like a screen pass, which could lead to negative yards, which is a disaster, or he is running down the sideline, and we got to hope that Dak Prescott is looking in his direction. So that's the only sketchy play, is that Dowdle play, which, fingers crossed, hopefully it hits for you, Sean. Jayville sends in a question, says, 1, wide receiver / flex, Michael Pittman Jr., Waddle, Mooney, Stevenson. Let's say, for example, it's a half PPR. At that circumstance, I'd play Pittman alongside of Stevenson. If it's a full PPR, at that point, I'd be willing to go Pittman and Mooney. Thank you. David Garcia sends in a question, says, Pepper under underdog parlay, ? Plus Mason drop pickup. Okay, so when you say Pepper underdog parlay, I don't know what you exactly mean by Pepper. So if you had more context regarding what the heck the Pepper sign meant, that'd be greatly appreciated. As for plus Mason dropped pickup, ? I don't really see myself picking up Jordan Mason in many of scenarios. I've talked about this over the course of the week. The issue where it kind of revolves around Jordan Mason's injury, the shoulder injury. 2 of the last 3 weeks, he's left the game and not returned with the injury. He is not a startable option in that circumstance. So I don't trust him to start for me in any circumstance going forward, as long as that shoulder injury is implicated to, at any point, once again re-aggravate. Naheem sends in a question, says, in a full PPR, pick 2, Marvin Harrison, Ridley, McConkey, or Waddle. As of those available, I'd probably go with Marvin Harrison and Ridley as my 1-2 combo. I'm already starting Achane and also Kincaid or Henry if May plays. Even if May plays, I'd probably still play Kincaid over him. So I go Mason, Ridley, and Kincaid as my 3 suggestions. Naheem, thank you. Angel Montero sends in a question, says also, okay, so he says, Angel, I just traded Jaden Daniels for Mike Evans in a full PPR. I thought the team thoughts on the team. It consists of Allen, Darnold, Achane, JT, Bijan, that's Brian Robinson, Chase Brown, Jonathan Brooks, St. Brown, Garrett Wilson, Mike Evans, Debo Hawkinson, Kraft. Okay, pretty solid looking team across the board. Also Brown or BRJ this week in the full PPR. I'd rather play Chase Brown over Brian Robinson Jr., Angel. Now, as for the way that this team is constructed, again, considering you're looking towards the future, you've probably got a really solid record, and you're just, again, you're trying to build up depth for the future, I think it's a great trade. Because once you get Mike Evans back from weeks 12 and beyond, the upcoming schedule for Mike Evans is going to be beautiful. And of course, he wants to go ahead and try to accomplish an 11th consecutive year of 1,000+ receiving yards, and I'm sure they're going to help him get there. All right, Nathan Smith says, in a full PPR, Xavier Worthy or Jackson Smith and Jigba, I'd rather have JSN in my lineup. Nathan, thank you. Joey Boy says, in a half PPR, start 2, Tracy, Madison, JSN, or Tillman. In a half PPR, I'll take both the running backs. I'll take Tracy and Madison. Thank you. Lock Screen Gaming sends in a question. Says, Daniels, Hall, Gibbs, Chase, Olave, Ferguson, Harrison Jr., Vikings defense. Bench consists of Moore, Kincaid, Brian Thomas Jr. Any changes to make? I don't even know if Brian Thomas Jr. is going to play. So that in itself kind of keeps him as a sketchy overall circumstance. So as of right now, I don't change anything. I leave it as is. Your lineup looks good to go. No changes are necessary. And it says, any other defense or waiver wire, other defense? No, I think you're good to go in terms of the Vikings defense. Yeah. Unless like the Washington defense was available and you had an open available bench spot where you can just throw anybody in there, then sure. But outside of that, I'm very comfortable with what you have on roster. Thank you. Tony sends in a question. Says, in a full PPR, pick one, Waddle, Myers, or Ridley. Happy birthday. Thank you very much. I'd rather play Myers out of the group. It'd go Myers 1, Ridley 2, and Waddle 3, under the assumption that Ridley has Mason Rudolph. If Mason Rudolph is not the starter this week, which again, I could have woke up and missed the news that they're starting Will Levis for some stupid reason. But again, as of right now, as long as goodness gracious, as long as it is not Jordan Mason, Mason Rudolph at quarterback, I think we'll be fine. Jeez, man. This is what happens when I wake up and immediately stream. The brain just isn't functioning at a high enough capacity. I mean, my brain typically isn't functioning at a high enough capacity, but as of right now, it is even lower. It's on like sleep mode. King sends in a question. Says, in a full PPR, I need a wide receiver and a flex option between Mooney, Moore, Reed, Kareem Hunt, and Brian Thomas Jr. if healthy. So if Brian Thomas Jr. is healthy, he would be the preferred wide receiver out of this entire group, King. And then you would probably follow it up by playing Kareem Hunt next to him. Now, if in fact we do not have Brian Thomas Jr. active this week, at that point you would just pivot to playing, considering the rain in Green Bay, I don't love the idea of that. So you'd probably just pivot to playing either Mooney or Moore. And as of right now, I'd probably play DJ Moore there. So I go like BTJ, Kareem Hunt, otherwise DJ Moore and Kareem Hunt. Thank you. I am sends in a question. Says, pick one in a PPR, Hopkins, Ridley, or McMillan. As of right now, again, as long as Mason Rudolph is playing quarterback for the Patriots, Ridley would be number 1, Hopkins number 2, McMillan number 3. Andrew Mitchell sends in a question. Says, hey, Andrew, in a standard scoring league, Marvin Harrison Jr. or DJ Moore? Read over either. Considering what the weather is going to look like in Green Bay, where it's going to be raining for the entirety of that game, for the entirety of the day, I'd probably assume that's not going to be as plentiful and target heavy for those receiving options. So I'm going to probably just lean in the direction of playing Marv number 1, DJ Moore number 2, Reed number 3 in that circumstance. Bruce Cowdrey sends in a question. Thank you, Bruce. Says, in a full PPR, Washington or Coker? I'd rather play Coker this week. Thank you. The Hound sends in a question. Says, in a 10-team PPR, I have one quarterback, 2 wide receivers, 2 running backs, 1 tight end, 2 flex. I got Hurts, Bijan, Henry, Amari Cooper, Moore, Andrews, Hunt, Hopkins. My bench consists of Madison, Coleman, Dobbs, and Kraft. Any switches to make? Honestly, as of right now, the only switch that I would potentially even consider, I'd consider playing Madison over Hopkins. That's it. Well, okay, so this is what I'm going to consider. I'd play Hopkins over Amari Cooper because, I mean, again, Amari Cooper, I don't know what kind of workload he'll be ending up seeing this given week. So I'd probably play Hopkins over Amari Cooper, and then I play Madison within your second flex. That's the way I go about it, Hound. Thank you. All right, so let me go ahead and scroll up. David Garcia, did you end up sending in a... let's see here. David Garcia, did you end up sending anything? Can you do chili pepper / hot picks parlay? I mean, I don't think Underdog has those kind of things, but I mean, we could definitely put something together here. Like, let me just share with you guys what I was up to last night. Hold up. Give me a second here. I think I'll just flash it on screen, and I think it'll be pretty easy to get an understanding as to what I was cooking up last night in terms of some spicy potential plays. So I put together a couple 7-leg monsters last night. Very low entries. Just a quick little spice up. So let's just go ahead and let's travel over so I can share these things, okay? So I put together a couple anytime touchdown slips, where for this one, right, Let's see here. This is a $7 entry where it's anytime Bijan, anytime Saquon, anytime Henry, anytime Montgomery, anytime Kamara, anytime Kyron, anytime Walker, anytime CeeDee Lamb. Right? This was $7 to win 232. I was like, all right, you know what? Cool. Sounds good to me. Then I put in another one, whereas anytime Lamb, anytime Justin Jefferson, anytime London, Jalen Hurts rushing touchdown, anytime Jamar Chase, anytime James Conner, anytime Laporta, 7 picks, $5 entry for 477. So those are the kind of spicy things I was up to yesterday. So if that's what you're kind of referring to, you know, that's what I'm throwing in, you know, into the conversation as of right now. Thank you. Octavio says, start 2, Waddle, Downs, Flowers, Marvin Harrison. Out of that group, I'm going to play Downs and I'm going to play Flowers. Thank you, Octavio. Paco sends in a question, says, trade Kamara for Nico Collins. I'm 6-2 currently. I have Saquon Barkley, Kamara, Walker, Tracy, Chase, Garrett, London, D-Hop, McConkey. You can start 2 wide receivers, 2 running backs, and 2 flex in this league. Okay. As of right now, I don't see a necessity for having to trade Kamara for Nico Collins. I don't mind the trade in any sort of capacity. Don't get it wrong. I don't mind it. But considering Derek Carr's coming back, the way that this offense is kind of trending, Kamara just got himself a new 2-year deal. I'd assume that he's pretty safe. But if you want to make the swap, you can. You have the depth to be able to do so, very much so comfortably. So yeah, I don't mind the trade. I think it's an equal trade across the board in terms of equivalent value for remainder of the season. It's just a matter of preference as to who you want to keep. So in this circumstance, assuming it's a full PPR, yeah, I don't mind the idea of going after Nico Collins in this scenario for the future of the season in terms of long-term upside. All right, Jared sends in a question, says trade Flowers and Bigsby for DJ Moore and Waddle. It depends on what kind of running back depth you have on roster and how valuable Bigsby is to you. If Bigsby is not someone that is of the utmost value, it is not even your number 4 RB on roster, and it's just like a guy that you've somehow picked up and it's not really of value for the long term, then at that point, you're probably going in the direction of just taking the 2 wide receivers and rolling with them the rest of the way. Thank you. Let's see, we had a question from Big Trips, who says, Mahomes or Love? I'd rather play Mahomes this week. Start Tillman or risk BTJ? Yeah, so this is the situation. So tomorrow morning, the many of us who have BTJ on roster, unfortunately, will be put in a situation, just like we have in the last couple weeks, where you may not be able to wait for BTJ to give you a thumbs up as to whether or not he is active, because the Eagles take on the Jaguars at 1 p.m. PST tomorrow afternoon. Therefore, if you have somebody playing in the morning slate, and that is your only pivoting option, you would have to play them instead. Obviously, we have seen BTJ limited practice every single day this week, but that doesn't mean anything considering the Jaguars have been relatively conservative with their players in this circumstance. So by tomorrow morning, if we don't have any indication regarding whether or not he is going to play, I would say you're just going to have to play Tillman within the upcoming matchup. Thank you. Joey Boy sends in a question, says, rate my team. I have Mahomes. I have Nico Collins, Neighbors, Downs, Bijan, Hall, Kraft. My bench/flex consists of Sutton, JSN, Jennings, Tillman, Tracy, Madison, Brooks, Braylon Allen. Any moves? I mean, across the board, Mahomes, I don't think is going to be able to pull it every game rest of the season. I would have hoped that you had a better quarterback on roster instead of him. Because again, thus far this season, Mahomes has just not been hit. Like it has hurt you more than it has helped you, Joey Boy. So I don't know how you've survived this long and he's still your quarterback, but we'll keep it moving. As for wide receiver, no issue. Running back, no issue. Tight end, no issue. The bench has a pretty good volume of, depth at running back and wide receiver, so I have no issue with those either. Yeah, the only thing that I'm worried about is Mahomes. Like this week, he's great, but for future, matchups like Denver and that secondary, I don't love it. I don't love it at all. All right, we had a question that came in from Ashley Gomez, who says, in a half PPR scoring format, I need 1 for the flex. Mostert, Waddle, Elijah Moore. In a half PPR, I'm not going to play Mostert, very much so touchdown dependent. If he doesn't fall into the end zone, we are in trouble. Then it's between Waddle and Elijah Moore, which at that point, let me see here. I want to go check. I'm probably going to play Waddle, but I want to see how have the Chargers played against opposing slot receiving options this season. So let's see here. Chargers, who's their primary nickel cornerback? They played pretty well. Derwin James and Jasir Taylor, yeah, they're both good. Yeah, as of right now, I'm just going to play Waddle in that situation. Thank you. Steven Drake sends in a question, says, hey, bro, I traded Hunt for Aaron. Sorry, what does it say? You traded Hunt for Aaron Jones? How the heck did you do that? Good trade. Yeah, that's a fantastic trade. You actually stole Aaron Jones, what you're basically telling me. Also, would you play Hubbard over Hunt this week? I would play Hubbard over Hunt this week, yes, in a half PPR. Thank you. Jayville sends out a question, says, thoughts on Mooney matchup versus Pittman matchup? I prefer to play Pittman just because I trust that the offense is going to have to throw the ball for the entirety of the game, in comparison to if the Atlanta Falcons take an early lead against the Dallas Cowboys and Dak begins to do what he normally does, which is turn over the ball early. It could be a game in which Mooney isn't implicated for as much upside as we would want him to, if there isn't as much of a kind of retaliation from the Dallas Cowboys offense on a consistent basis. So as of right now, I'm leaning in the direction of probably just rather having Pittman, especially with the touchdown upside he provides, with Joe Flacco always throwing about 2 TDs per game on average. He's done that for 8 consecutive games. Let's see here. We had a question from RZ King, who says, love or Dak this week? I'd rather, depending on that weather, we're going to have to wait and see. As of right now, I'm going to leave it at Jordan Love as my starting quarterback. But actually, let me see here. When did they play tomorrow morning? They're very early in the morning. Okay, so considering the weather in Green Bay could be a disaster, you might just want to play Dak Prescott there just to avoid it. Because I don't know what the weather is going to look like until we get to the afternoon slate. But everything that I've read says it's going to be raining the whole day in Green Bay. So it's not the most ideal situation for a quarterback who's dealing with an injury and is probably going to be a little bit banged up on top of that. Peyton Whitaker sends in a question. Says, who good tradeaways? I mean, brother, we got to fix the English here a little bit, huh? Okay. You said Hunt, Rachaad White, Devontae Smith, Mark Andrews, Dak Prescott. I know it was just a bad game for Marvin Harrison. Don't panic much. Happy birthday. Thank you. Okay. I mean, tradeaways, like players you want to get rid of right now, Kareem Hunt is the guy. That's the guy that I'm trying to trade away. If you can, you do so. Because, again, he is going to eventually disappear with the return of Isaiah Pacheco. Outside of that, again, you could trade away Rachaad White, but you would need to get back a running back in return unless you don't need the running back depth, which I assume you would. Devontae Smith, I'm keeping. Mark Andrews, I'd keep unless you can get a tight end who is less volatile and less touchdown dependent and more receiving upside in terms of receptions and yardage alone. But yeah, Hunt and White could be moved, but you'd need running back services in return. You could end up sending both for one if, in fact, you are sending it to a Pacheco manager. That is always in the realm of possibility if they're interested. If they're not, then at that point, Hunt is very much so difficult to trade. I don't know how the earlier message of Stephen Drake's, I don't know how he's traded away Hunt for Aaron Jones. That doesn't make any sense to me. Those are rare instances of success in a very bleak kind of situation. Hassan says, what's up, Andrew? Can you check Twitter? If you don't mind, yeah, let me go ahead and let me swap over really quickly. All right, let's see here. All right, Hassan, what do you got here? It says, what's up, Andrew? Any thoughts on my team? Who should I start and sit? Okay, so what do you have here? So you have Burrow, Breece Hall, Javonte Williams, Marvin Harrison, Jaden Reed, Bowers, Bucky Irving, and Cortland Sutton. Your bench consists of the following. So Bowers is fine there. DK is going to be out. Yep. You can drop Brandon Ayuk off of your IR. I don't know why he is still there, unless it's a keeper league or a one of those dynasty formats. He's got to be off the lineup. Outside of that, in terms of any potential swaps I would make, looking at quarterback play, I don't really feel like I have to make a swap there. Jaden Reed is not the greatest, but you don't really have much available. Yeah, look, like your waivers are so thin at this point that I couldn't even suggest to swap anything. Everything would just stay as is, unfortunately. And I see it unfortunately because I don't know how bad that weather is going to be for Jaden Reed. And I really do not want to play Javonte Williams against the Ravens. But, I mean, at this point, you kind of have to, considering your alternative options aren't great either. I would consider most likely doing a swap in which, if in fact we get a confirmation that Amari Cooper is going to play, I'd play Bucky Irving over Javonte Williams, and then I'd flex Amari Cooper. Thank you. All right, moving on to a question that came in from Simplistic Grace, who says, questions in the chat, thank you. Okay, Simplistic, let me see here. All right, Simplistic Grace says, trade idea. I'm trying to get better at wide receiver. Trade Pittman, Leggett, and Tolbert, maybe Pearsall for Devontae Smith. Yeah, absolutely. I'd be willing to do so. Look, here's the thing. In the long term, Pittman and Leggett's values have just increased mightily with the overall moves that those organizations have made. The trade of Deontay Johnson, most likely an upcoming trade for Adam Thielen. Leggett is probably going to be implicated to being the number one wide receiver of that offense for the remainder of the season. Michael Pittman Jr. with Joe Flacco is a double-digit fantasy point prospect. So really, trading two of those players away for the potential of Devontae Smith, I'm okay with. But understand, like, if you need the wide receiver depth, I wouldn't be making the trade of where I'm sending all these players away. If you don't need the depth, you already have a strong base. Let me see here. Your other wide receivers are DJ, Zay Flowers, Keon Coleman. So yeah, if you were going to trade a 2-for-1, I'd be okay with it. If it's like a 3 or 4-for-1, I don't think it's worth it at that point. I try to keep Pittman and Leggett, and then I just keep it moving with what they're currently at. Other team has Judy and Jameson. Yeah, so as of right now, if it's going to be a 2-for-1, 3-for-1, I'd probably just keep what you have. Because at this point, like, I think Pittman and Leggett going forward, I mean, are they going to be auto starts? No. Yeah, okay, that's fine. We can play them. We can trade them both 2-for-1 for Devontae Smith. Any more than that, I think is just overkill and really not necessary. But if we're gonna make the trade for Devontae, that's fine by me. Because at that point, you'd start up every game with Zay Flowers rest of season. Thank you. Ashley Gomez. Okay, we already took care of that question. Scrolling back down here. Where was the next question? GM sends in a question. Thank you, GM. Says Hawkinson or Amari Cooper if healthy. Tight end premium. In a tight end premium, I'd rather play Hawkinson. Thank you. Jamal Joyner sends in a question. Says in a half PPR, Love or Carr? I'd rather play Love. Again, Carr is going to be interesting. Tricky being that Love plays after Carr. Correct. If BTJ doesn't play, Rachaad White or Hawkinson in the flex, Reichard or Lutz. I'd rather have Reichard at kicker. And if in fact BTJ is not active at that point in a half PPR, I would pivot to playing Rachaad White. Thank you. WRM says, hey, Andrew, I'm currently 3-5 in a 10-team full PPR 2 flex league. We have Josh Allen, Jamar Chase, Tyreek Hill, JT, Brees, Andrews, Marvin Harrison, Amari Cooper, Myers, Worthy, Ridley, Mason, Bigsby. What should I do to improve? Thank you. In terms of improvements, look, Josh Allen can't be improved upon. Neither can Jamar Chase or Tyreek Hill. JT, Brees Hall, very much so, are difficult to improve on as well. Mark Andrews, again, could theoretically be improved on, but what you would have to give away alongside of Mark Andrews may be a little bit too valuable. Like, you'd have to give away Mark Andrews and Jacoby Myers to a wide receiver needy team, which in a 10-team league is going to be rare to find, for a potentially better tight end, which again, you would try to go after one of the top tier options. For example, a McBride, Kelsey, Bowers, or Kittle. You could definitely try to go down that path and see if you can potentially find any sort of circumstance in which that clicks. But if not, I'd probably just rather keep Myers for that double flex format going forward in the future. But that would be the only kind of path of upgrades within my mind as of right now. Thank you. The Recovery 716 says, Andrew, my guy, my gut feeling telling me to sit BTJ. I have Mooney, but I kind of want to trade for Pittman. I would trade for Pittman as well. Do you like Pittman this week? Yeah, I do. Also, I got Chase Brown on the bench. Play him over Josh Jacobs with his injury. Josh Jacobs with his injury. What is Josh Jacobs' injury? Hold up. Wait a minute. Do we have... I mean, look, I was going to play him over Josh Jacobs anyway, but when you say injury, I'm thinking to myself, what are we talking about? Control F, Josh Jacobs' ankle. Yeah, he'll be fine. Josh Jacobs, I don't expect him to be, again, we have seen Josh Jacobs in seasons past be questionable every single week and also average 20 points every single week. I think it was 2 years ago. Was it like 2022 fantasy? Josh Jacobs was questionable every week and was a 20-point monster every week. I'm not too worried about him, but yes, I still would rather prefer to play Chase Brown in that circumstance for the given week. Thank you. Let's see here. Lawson sends in a question. Says, pick 2 wide receivers, Tillman, Sutton, Deontay Johnson, Downs. I'd play Sutton and Downs. Thank you, Lawson. WRM sends in a follow-up. Says, pick 2 in the flex, Marvin Harrison, Amari Cooper, Myers, Worthy, Ridley. As of right now, it would probably be Myers and Marvin Harrison. Yeah, those would be the 2 that I prefer out of the group. Joel Garza sends in a question. Nothing attached to it. Let's see if I can find it in the live chat. Joel Garza says, full PPR, would you rather have Tillman or Deontay Johnson? Tillman is sitting on my waivers. I have Johnson. I think I'd rather have Tillman as of right now. That's probably the way that I go about it. I don't love the idea of where Deontay Johnson kind of landed within that offense. Thank you. Daniel Barnes sends in a question, says, Groupie or Cameron Dicker? I'd rather have Cameron Dicker. Next question, full PPR flex, DJ Moore, BTJ, Marvin Harrison. Do you have a pivoting option for the afternoon? You do. So I try to play BTJ. If you can't, you pivot to playing Marvin Harrison there. Thank you. Ashley Gomez sends in a follow-up, says, sorry, but was Wando Robinson not Waddle? Got it. Okay, let me go back and scroll up to your previous question. So you had said, okay, yeah, that's my bad. So if it's Mostert, Wando Robinson, and Elijah Moore, then at that point you have to play Elijah Moore. Thank you. Apologies. That's my bad. Again, my morning brain is not functioning at a high capacity. Akuma187 says, sup, Andrew. Start Love or drop D-Hop to pick up card. No, I keep Love. I'm not dropping D-Hop for that. Joey Boy says, Downs touchdown, Achane/Myers over 4.5 receptions, Chubb over 52.5 rushing yards. I don't know about the Chubb yardage, but everything else seems like it's relatively possible in this circumstance. Thank you. Let's see here. Croza sends in a question, says PPR, one wide receiver. Sorry, I need a wide receiver 1 and a wide receiver 2. They're Pittman and Tillman. At the flex, who should I start between Gesicki, Coker, Elijah Moore, Washington, Pop Douglas, Quentin Johnston? Okay, between those available options as your flex, going into this week, I'd like to play Gesicki there. The number 2 option would be Elijah Moore. The number 3 would be Jalen Coker. Now going on to the next question after that, also RB2, Miles Sanders, Ray Davis, Jaleel McLaughlin, ETN, and Ty Chandler. The order at which I currently have it, if ETN is active, he would be your RB2. If he is not active, you play Miles Sanders, then you would play Ray Davis, then you would play McLaughlin, then you play Ty Chandler in that order. Thank you. Andrew sends in a question, says in a half PPR, who do I start, McBride or Ingram? I'd rather play McBride. Thank you. Victor sends in a question, says start Hubbard or Brian Robinson Jr. with Brooks out. I'd rather play Hubbard. Thank you. OGJC7 says, I forgot to mention this context for my half PPR 12-team trade. AJ Brown/Dowdle for CD and Warren. Currently have both Dowdle and Devontae Smith on my bench, and it's unlikely I'll ever play both. That changed things. So you're what you're saying is this is purely just the trade of which wide receiver we prefer long-term, AJ Brown or CeeDee Lamb. In that circumstance, yes, fine. I will take CeeDee Lamb and I will start him for the remainder of the season. That works for me, OG. Thank you. All right, let's see here. Guillermo Rodriguez sends in a question. Where's Guillermo's question? Guillermo. All right, it says, in a full PPR, I need lineup help. Advice for wide receiver and flex, I have Allen at quarterback, Keon Coleman, Marvin Harrison, Chase Brown, Odunze. As of those available, it's Chase Brown and Marvin Harrison. Thank you. Moving on to a question from AJ, who says, in a full PPR, I need a wide receiver and a flex. Start 2 between Pittman, Mooney, Myers, Madison. Thanks. Out of those available, I'm going to go with Pittman and Myers as of right now. Madison could potentially take the starting spot from one of those two. I might re-rack my rankings. Those 3 are tough. Mooney is not playing over any of those, though, as of right now. So it's either Pittman, Myers, and Madison. Considering the Cincinnati matchup, I kind of want to play both Raiders, but I think Pittman is a pretty solid play in this circumstance. So as of right now, I probably just go with Pittman and Myers because of the full PPR standing. Thank you. Terry R. sends in a question, says drop 1 to 2 players to add a quarterback, Bo Nix or Flacco, and add a kicker. Droppable players are Rachaad White, Hawkinson, Chase Brown, Mason, DeAndre Hopkins. Pittsburgh's defense. Current lineup is Bijan, St. Brown, Kupp, Pitts, and James Cook. Got it. So of the available droppable players, the only players that I see are absolutely droppable are Jordan Mason. And let me see how the Pittsburgh's defense has done. And let me look at their upcoming schedule. Pittsburgh. So obviously they've been really good in terms of a defense every week. Then they have Washington, Baltimore, Cleveland, Cincinnati, Cleveland, Philadelphia, Baltimore, Kansas City. I don't love the idea of having to play that defense against those great offenses. Washington, Baltimore. Even Cleveland could even be a good offense in a couple weeks' time here with Jameis Winston 5 weeks away from now being even more practiced. So I think it's probably a Pittsburgh and Mason drop. I don't really want to drop anybody else in that circumstance. Thank you. Sending in the question is AJ, who says in a full PPR, I need a wide... Oh, never mind. We already took care of this one. Apologies. I was repeating myself. This is another... Okay, so we took care of that question. We took care of Terry R. Nathan Smith says, do I start Pollard with the injury if he plays? I would. Again, I don't have him as highly ranked as I did earlier in the week, but I have dropped him enough to where he is still a startable option in the circumstance. All right, let's see here. I've got potential sends in a question. It says start 2 between Waddle, Otton, and Njoku. I'll play both tight ends. Give me Otton and Njoku there. And then it says... And should I pick up Philly over KC's defense? No, I like KC's defense this week. I have no issue with that. WRM says start Taysom Hill. Taysom Hill is my number 18 ranked tight end of the remaining tight ends that are left. I will not start him unless I am in a super desperate situation. Akuma187 says love or pick up Geno, Caleb, Flacco, Lawrence, or Tua. I wouldn't mind picking up Caleb and playing him instead of him. That's probably the direction that I would go in there. Peter sends in a question. Peter, where art thou? Question. There it is. Tua versus the Bills or Carr versus the Panthers? I have Carr ranked higher. Thank you. Dennis Clough sends in a question. Says, in a full PPR, 2 running back, 2 wide receiver, 1 flex league, I have Josh Jacobs, Kareem Hunt, J.K. Dobbins, Tyrone Tracy, Terry McLaurin, Chris Olave, and DJ Moore. Okay, so this is the way that I would go about it, Dennis. If it was my lineup, I would set it with wide receivers Terry McLaurin and Chris Olave as my 2 starting wide receivers. I would start Josh Jacobs and Kareem Hunt at running back, and I would follow with Tyrone Tracy in the flex. Thank you. All right, we took care of that. All right. Again, for those of you who are joining us this morning, welcome. Hope you guys are doing well. Again, this is a little bit of a different live stream in terms of the overall schedule and all that kind of jazz. Today, we've got a pretty busy day for your boy. I will not be home for the majority of the day, but I will be back tomorrow morning starting at 7 a.m. PST to 10 a.m. 3 hours nonstop, updated rankings on screen, all that kind of jazz. If you guys want my rankings for tomorrow morning, again, you can either check out the Patreon, links down in the description, or you can sign up via Underdog. And when you do so, you'll get those rankings sent from my email directly to yours, whichever way you want to go about it. Or, of course, you don't have to do either of those two. We'll have rankings on screen tomorrow, or you can ask questions in the live chat tomorrow, and either I will answer your question or somebody else will within that 3-hour live stream. No guarantees as to me directly answering your question, but hopefully via proxy, it could potentially happen. Alrighty, let's see here. I'm going to not probably. So like I mentioned earlier, the stream is going to be only an hour today. So in about 14 minutes, your boy will be out of here. I do appreciate y'all. But again, I will be back tomorrow morning for 3 hours of nonstop questions answered. Adam sends in a question. Says, in a full PPR, I need 1 flex between Chase Brown. Oh, there you go. YouTube crashed again. Let's go ahead. Let me close all these other tabs just so I don't have an issue with that. All right, Adam says, in a full PPR, I need 1 flex between Chase Brown, BTJ, and Marvin Harrison. Out of those 3, I'm playing, Chase Brown. That would be the preferred. Definitely leaning towards Brown would be, yeah, absolutely. I agree with you, Adam. You're good to go. All right, let's see here. Ben McFadden in the chat says, in a half PPR, I need 2 between Tolbert, Laporta, Henry, Coker, and Chestnut. If Tolbert start and Pollard is out, then I may have to sit Javonte and start. Yeah, I would agree with you, Ben. I mean, honestly, yeah, I would agree with you. I think you're on the right track in terms of that overall situation and the potential pivoting options that you have to go about. For Earth says, start 2, Chase Brown, Reed Downs. I'm going to play Chase Brown and Downs there this week. Round Betty says, in a PPR, flex Tillman, Bucky, Dowdle, or Hopkins. I'm going to lean towards Tillman, number 1, Hopkins, 2, Dowdle, 3, Bucky, 4. Dylan Ross says, choose 1 in the flex, half PPR man, 8-man team. We have Puka, James Conner, Ramondre Tracy Jr. Yeah, as of right now, if Puka is active, he's in my lineup. If he, in fact, is not active by tomorrow morning, I'd play James Conner there. We had a question from M. Suna, who says, in a half PPR 2 flex league, we have Ladd McConkey, Bucky Irving, Laporta. Okay, if we're playing 2 of those flex options, I'm probably going to play Ladd McConkey along with Laporta there. As for quarterback, Baker or Dak, I prefer to play Baker this week. Thank you. Hank Hennig sends in a question. Says, PPR Mooney or Tyrone Tracy in the flex? In a full PPR, I'm very comfortable still playing Tyrone Tracy in that circumstance. Moving on to the next question, starting Cup and... Oh, yeah, that's not even a question. It's just a statement. Yeah, I'd play Tracy there. I have no issue with that at all. Deering Outdoors says, in a PPR start 1, Hunt, James Conner, Jaden Reed, Kate Otten. Out of that group, I'm playing James Conner as my starting player. Thank you. Hot Dog Guy sends in a question, says, in a 12-man half PPR, wide receivers are JJ, CD, Olave, Marvin Harrison, Myers. Running backs are Kenneth Walker, Chuba Hubbard, Dowdle, Brooks. Would you trade Marvin Harrison for Tracy? I mean, looking at your wide receivers, Marvin Harrison probably never plays rest of season, with JJ, CD being the number 1, 2, and Olave being that pivot 3. So potentially getting Tracy, I don't mind it. Do I rather have a potentially... Let me look at the schedule for the Giants. I think the Giants have a pretty good running back strength of schedule rest of the way as well, which, again, would serve pretty well in the circumstance of Tracy. Let me look at this real quick. So in terms of weeks... Let me look at the full grand scheme of it. Okay, let's see here. Yeah, they have the 7th best schedule rest of the way. I don't mind it. I think that works for me. I mean, would I rather have a different running back? Yeah, I mean, I'd love to have James Conner instead, but obviously, if you're not able to get a player of that caliber, then sure. ALG sends in a question, says, in a full PPR, Geno or Mayfield? I'd rather have Mayfield. Thank you. Dirk Doug sends in a question, says, should I trade Gabe Davis / McMillan for Dowdle? Yeah, absolutely. I'd be willing to do so. If you need the running back depth, absolutely. Rogo sends in a question, says, good morning, bro. In a standard half PPR, dropped Kincaid for Otten, but who's better rest of season? I mean, honestly, I do believe that Otten is probably better rest of season. Looking to pick up a defense, I have Denver, but team is full having wide receiver issues with Higgins and Amari Cooper. What to do? Drops. You would drop Denver's defense if you need to swap. So don't be afraid to drop them and swap away, because nobody in this week is going to pick them up. You would just have to fight for them on waivers next week, which isn't an issue. Cameron sends in a question, says Jefferson for Kupp, Hopkins, and James Cook. Jefferson for Kupp, Hopkins, James Cook. No, I'd rather have Kupp and James Cook rest of the season. Oh, so yeah, you would be trading away Jefferson for Kupp and James Cook. Yeah, absolutely. Let's make that trade for sure. I have no issue with that, Cameron. Croza sends in a question, says, thanks. In a full PPR flex, Komet, Coker, Elijah Moore, was that Demarcus Robinson, Darius Slayton, Quentin Johnson, Pop Douglas, Christian Watson. Got it. So of all those available options, the highest ranked player I have is Elijah Moore, 1. Coker would be number 2. And then it'd probably be like a combination of Komet 3 with Demarcus Robinson 3, and then everybody else is 4. Thank you. PC sends in a question, says Keon or Jaden Reed in my wide receiver 2. When do the Bills play? They play tomorrow morning, NFL Week 9. Yeah, they do. As of right now, I'd probably just play Keon Coleman there. Luis Castillo sends in a question, says in a 10-team standard, I have Puka, Dell, and Mooney. Bench has Dobbs, Hopkins, Pickens, Mason, Etienne, Herbert. Leggett on waivers. Drop someone for him. I mean, honestly, I think I would. Like, Herbert's got to be dropped. Like, unless Herbert's going to guarantee a fantastic position as to where he gets drafted to, there's a reason why he is a non-starter right now in the NFL. Like, he has been a good running back at times in the past, but the reason why DeAndre Swift and Roschon Johnson have overtaken his job is because he cannot perform at the level which the organization thought he would, which, again, leads him to being a lesser option. So he would be the drop in my mind. I'm not looking for the future of him. I'm looking towards trying to get a player that I know is already on a team that I prefer to their upcoming matchups and all that kind of jazz. Also, drop Detroit for New England for defense. Yeah, sure. I don't mind that at all. Let's see here. Alan in the chat said, Jacobs, Chase Brown, Devontae Smith in the flex. I'd probably go Chase Brown there. Yasin in the chat says, half PPR, would you trade Pittman for Higgins and Lockett in a 12-man league? Yeah, I mean, I would, but it's very much so dependent on if you can wait for Higgins to get healthy. If you can wait for him to get healthy, then sure, I would. Justin McMillan says, in a full PPR flex spot, Madison, Bucky, Dowdle, I'd rather play Madison out of the group. Roy Shaver says, go Rams. Thank you very much, Roy. Julian in the chat says, hey, Andrew, can you pick one for the flex? Tracy, Tillman, Flowers, or Otten in a full PPR? Flowers would probably be my number 1. Tracy would be my number 2. Otten 3, Tillman 4. Let's see here. Billy sends in a question. Says, trade Pollard and Kate Otten for Chase Brown. I have McBride, and I need a win this week. Yeah, let's do it. Again, if there's too much inherent risk regarding the Pollard situation, I have no issue with it at all. Chase Brown is in my top 12 running back rankings for this week, and he is ahead of Pollard, even if Pollard was to play. So yeah, let's go with it. All right, let's see here. We had a question that came in from John Koziar, who says, in a 12-man full PPR, we have 3 wide receivers and 1 flex. Who do I flex? I have Bijan, Achane, and Connor, Devontae Adams, Shakir, Downs, Ladd McConkey, and Higgins. Okay, so I'm going to assume that your league is a 2 running back, 3 wide receiver, 1 flex league, John. Therefore, I would assume that you're already playing Bijan and Achane at running back. You are already playing Devontae Adams. Devontae Adams. You are already playing Downs, and you are already playing Shakir. So I'm going to just play Connor in your flex. That's the way that I'd go about it, John. Galactic Ghoul sends in a question, says, talk to me about Bucky in a half PPR, Bucky in flex number 2, or Njoku or Porter. I'd rather play Njoku. Again, unless Bucky Irving was to get himself a very similar scoreline to last week in which he's catching 7 receptions out of the backfield, which again is a very rare circumstance, I'd much rather play Njoku in the upcoming matchup. Twisted Folk sends in a question, says, in a half PPR, drop Pittman for DeAndre Hopkins for depth. No, I think Pittman is actually proper depth. Play 3. 2 running backs, 1 flex. We have Kamara, we have Connor, we have Chase Brown, we have Tracy, we have Jacobs. Out of those available, the 2 running backs that I'm starting are going to be Kamara and Chase Brown, and your flex is going to be Josh Jacobs. Thank you. Moving on to the next question, says drop Chase Brown or Tracy next week. No, I'm not dropping either of them rest of season. Keep them all on roster. Crows that sends in a follow-up says, shout out to you, bro. Been saving my team this year. Thank you very much. I appreciate it, Croza. Glad to help. All right, let's see here. Rexton in the chat says, PPR, should I trade London for Neighbors? I'd probably rather have Neighbors in the long term. Less offensive dysfunction overall. Dan Tucci says, PPR, 4-point per scoring, Bo Nix or Baker. I'd rather have Bo Nix. G.I. Jose sends in a question, says, I'm undefeated in my league, but I have Chase, London, Nakua, and Olave. Who gets the bench? This week been driving me crazy. I mean, as of right now, considering Puka Nakua's injury, I think it's relatively safe to just start Jamar Chase, London, and Olave and not have to worry about it. Not a lot of other teams have the luxury that you have at the moment to where you can bench him because you have an alternative option that is just as good, if not better. So I'm comfortable just benching Nakua just in case he leaves the game early due to an injury and just playing Olave in his stead. So London, Chase, and Olave are the three that I would suggest. Dirk Doug says Burrow, Tracy, Kyron Williams, London, Reed, McBride, Keon, my lineup this week. Christian McCaffrey's coming back next week. Should I make a move to upgrade my wide receiver 2 or roll with Reed? I mean, if you're going to upgrade wide receiver 2, again, the players that I would try to go get right now would be a DK Metcalf or a Mike Evans for the future of the season because, again, they're currently injured and you might be able to buy them lower than you typically would be able to in a prior circumstance. All right, let's see here. Damon Smith sends in a question. This is in a full PPR. Which quarterback do you prefer rest of season? Dak Prescott, Aaron Rodgers, Joe Flacco, or Trevor Lawrence? Okay, so out of those available options, under the assumption that Joe Flacco is going to start every single game for the remainder of the season, he would be my preferred quarterback. Outside of that, it would be Aaron Rodgers second, Dak Prescott third, Trevor Lawrence fourth, in that specific order. Thank you. Rusty Wright sends in a question, says in a half PPR must win, really leaning Hawkinson over Kincaid, which I am as well, starting Achane plus Hill plus Cook, so I'm worried about being too correlated with a singular game. Yeah, you're good. Play Hawkinson. You have no issue with that. I prefer Hawkinson. Gatlin says, is Tracy auto pickup? Abso-fucking-lutely. Yes. Pick him up. Chuba Ramondre in the flex. Alfio, I would rather play Ramondre today. Alan says, full PPR, Chase Brown or Devontae Smith or Jacobs. Yeah, I'm still playing Chase Brown there. Unknown Cayman says, in a full PPR 10-team league, who should I play out of the flex, Pollard, Ladd, or Cooper? You'd play Pollard if he's active. If he's not, then you would pivot to playing Ladd. Dowdle or Madison in a half PPR, beast mode. I have Madison ranked higher. D-Hop or Mostert says Justin Smith. I'd play D-Hop this week. Austin says half PPR, Coker, Tillman, Tolbert, Javante. Tillman is the number 1, Coker's number 2. Cooper or for Coleman? I don't know about that one. That one we have to wait on. John Cozier says, what do you think about Coker and Parker Washington? Not as interested in Parker Washington. Again, he played last year in the absence of Christian Kirk. Didn't do much. So I'm not too interested there. As for Coker, considering the upcoming matchup, the last week's performance against Denver, and the fact that this offense, again, is going to have Coker and Leggett as their number 1 and 2 receiving options rest of season, with most likely an Adam Thielen trade next week, I think they're in pretty good hands with those kind of young wide receivers. Maddie says, best kickers should be from Cowboys-Falcons game, right? Yes, absolutely. Both of those kickers, Aubrey and Koo, are both in my top 3 rankings as of right now. Or stay with Washington's kicker. Okay, well, there you go. Washington's kicker is the highest ranked of the bunch. So it'd go Washington's kicker, then it would go Koo, then it would go Aubrey. So yeah, those 3 are great. I'd keep Seibert. All right, let's see here. As the Thoth says, in a PPR, who do I bench between Worthy, White, and Ridley? Worthy gets the bench. Thank you. Brent Shin says, Aaron Jones, David Montgomery, and Tracy, pick 2 in a PPR. Aaron Jones is the automatic. Tracy would be the number 2. So I'll go Aaron Jones and Tracy as my 1-2 combo there. Thank you. All right. Again, like I mentioned earlier, guys, I appreciate you guys coming through, clicking the like button, sending in those super chats, supporting the channel. Unfortunately, this is where we're going to have to call it a quick little 1-hour live stream. Again, I will be back tomorrow morning starting at 7 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. I appreciate y'all. If you want your questions answered, all that kind of jazz, rankings for tomorrow morning at a full encompassing rate, whether it's by position, by tier, quarterback, running back, wide receiver, tight end, kicker, defense, flex, all encompassing half PPR, full PPR. You can either check out the Patreon, link is down in the description, or you can go ahead and sign up using code Andrew via Underdog and making that first time deposit minimum of $10. Both ways get you those rankings, or you can go ahead and show up tomorrow morning and we'll talk about rankings as we will filter the rankings on screen as we do every single Sunday morning for 3 hours. The final question of the day is C. Banjo, who says, in a PPR, McConkey or Hopkins? As of right now, in a PPR, am I going to go with McConkey or Hopkins? I think I feel confident enough to where I'm willing to go with Hopkins there. Is it sketchy? Yes, but I'm willing to take the risk for it because I think the upside is extremely high. All right, Anonymous, there's nothing attached to your question, so we're going to hope that you send that in soon rather than later, because if you do not, then I'm going to have to close shop here. Anonymous, where art thou? Come on, man. Where are you? Until then, Onich says, thanks. No problem, Onich. Enlo says, Mike Gesicki with, wait, what is it? Mike get down with the sickness? Okay, I get it. Komet, or yeah, Mike Gesicki would be the play there, Enlo. Let's see here. RH Khan says, trade Evans / Mahomes for Pickens and B-Rob. Sure, why not? Anonymous sends in the question. Final question of the day. Says, I have Kyron. I want to drop either Spears or Juju for Corum. Cool. Let's drop Spears. Javonte is my only other running back. I'm thinking of playing Spears on his 14 bye. Okay. That's fine. Okay, so you can drop Juju then. If that's how you have it and you don't have any running back depth to where Spears has to be correlated to potentially play in the future, I have no issue with dropping Juju Smith-Schuster at all. None at all. With DeAndre Hopkins going into that offense, you're good to go. Abanto says, miss my super chat from Brent. Miss super chat from Brent. No, I answered Brent's question. Aaron Jones and Tracy. That would be it. We're good to go. We're good to go. Sounds good. All right, guys. I appreciate you all. I'll be back tomorrow, 7 a.m. sharp, early, ready to go, answering questions. Until then, have a great rest of your Saturday. And until next time, I'll see you guys. Peace.